This video was created to demonstrate the high-low method of separating fixed costs and variable costs from mixed costs. Please refer to the sidebar under References on the Learning Manager to obtain a copy of the question used in this demonstration. The question begins like this. The Glengarry Motel in Truro, Nova Scotia has accumulated records of the total wage cost and occupancy days over the last year. An occupancy day represents a room rented out for 1 day. The motel's peak season is summer, with the other in the winter for ski season. And then it lists the months of the year, the occupancy days, and the wage costs. The required of the question asks us to use the high-low method to estimate the fixed cost of wages per month and the variable cost of wages per occupancy day. I'm going to solve this question using Excel. Excel is a spreadsheet software program, and spreadsheet is a tool that every accountant needs to be familiar with. It's used quite often in industry. So when you begin to separate the variable and the fixed cost from the mixed cost with the high-low method, you have to start by analyzing the data and finding the highest occupancy day with the highest wages and the lowest occupancy day with the lowest wages. And when you analyze the data, you'll find the highest being August and the lowest in October. So I'm going to start with that data, and as I put the data into my spreadsheet, I'm going to make sure that all of the data have labels so that we know what they are. So I'm going to put occupancy day, and then I'll just column wider, and then I'm going to put the wage cost, and down the side I'm going to put the high and the low. Now when I get the occupancy days from the list in the question, the high is $2,406, and the related wage cost is $51,480. The low is 124 occupancy days with a related wage cost of $15,880. Now the first step in separating the costs is to calculate the difference between the high and the low. So right here, I'm going to calculate the difference. As my words go into the next column, I'm just going to increase the size of that column. Whenever you do a calculation in Excel, you have to make sure that you use a formula for that calculation. So formulas start with an equal sign, and then what I'm going to do is just take the high and subtract the low. And then you hit enter, and it calculates the difference. I do the same thing for the wage cost, and I don't want to go through all that again. I'm just going to copy this formula over. And of course, in Excel, you'll notice when you copy, the formula within the calculation is relative to where I copied the new formula. All right, the next step is to calculate the variable cost. And the variable cost is calculated by taking the change in the cost and dividing by the change in activity. In this case, the activity is the occupancy days. So the change in the cost is the $35,600, and I don't want to have to type that in if I already have that number somewhere else. So I'm just going to use the equal sign and then click on the number I want to use in this formula. I'm going to do the same thing. Oops. Hit my escape button when I do something wrong here. I forgot to finish off that formula by hitting enter. I'm going to do the same thing for the occupancy days. I hit my equal sign, click on the number I want to use in this calculation, and hit enter. Now I'm going to divide the change in activity by the change in the cost. So I'm going to create a new formula, take the change in the cost, and divide by the change in activity. And this gives me my variable cost. And I'd like to round this to 2 decimal places. So I'm just going to use the rounding feature. And this button increases the decimal, and this one decreases the decimal, so I'm going to decrease the decimal to 2 decimal places. And I'm going to move this label. I didn't need it there, so I'm just going to move it down to label the $15.60. That's my variable cost of wages per occupancy day. Now, in order to get the fixed costs, we're going to take the total cost of one of the points that we used in the high-low, and we're going to subtract the variable cost for that level of activity to get our fixed cost. So I'm just going to quickly put the formula down here, and that can serve as labels for our calculation as well. Okay, so the fixed cost is what I'm trying to calculate. We're going to start with the total cost for a certain level of activity. So I'm going to use the high, and you can use the low. It doesn't really matter which one you use. So I'm going to take the equal sign and click on the wage cost for the high. Now the variable cost is calculated by taking the variable cost and multiplying the star. We're going to multiply by the occupancy days for the high. And that's going to give us our variable cost. Here, I'm going to round to 2 decimal places as well. Now once we have our total cost and our variable cost, we can subtract those two things. And I think I'm going to put the fixed cost over here. So I'm going to move this label just over here. And in this formula, I'm going to take my total cost and subtract the variable cost to give us our fixed cost. So this fixed cost represents the cost that we would have in wages if we had 1 occupancy day or 50 occupancy days. That's the cost that we're going to have every single time. In addition to the fixed cost, we also have a variable wage cost that changes for every occupancy day we have, and that cost is $15.60. This method is really simple to apply, but it has some disadvantages. It uses only 2 points to analyze the data, and they may not be representative of all of the costs for that period of time. So you have to be careful with this one. Now, as you can see from my spreadsheet, it doesn't have to look great to be able to do calculations that you want it to do. Remember, with worksheets, we want them to be able to do calculations correctly. We're not that concerned about format. You can play around with the format a little bit if it was an assignment or something that was going to go to your boss. But other than that, if it was just something I wanted to do for myself, I wouldn't get too fussy with the format.